Ethan Carter, a young billionaire, returns home to a chilling silence that sets his heart racing. Inside, he discovers a nightmare, his beloved mother bound and trembling, while his elegant wife sits calm, a predator in disguise. In that moment, betrayal, fear, and love collide, forcing Ethan to confront the ultimate test of loyalty and the true meaning of wealth. Let's go to the story. The morning air felt heavier than usual, like an invisible weight pressing down on Ethan Carter's shoulders. Even the sunlight seemed hesitant to enter the room, casting a muted, fragile glow across the walls of his penthouse suite. Ethan, one of the youngest billionaires in the country, had learned long ago to trust the instincts that stirred in his chest. That morning, his instincts screamed at him, urging him to turn back, to go home earlier than planned. His private jet landed hours ahead of schedule. The roads were empty as his black luxury car glided through the long, winding driveway of his mansion. The silence inside the house seemed unnatural, almost waiting for him, as if it were hiding something he was never meant to see. Wait, before I continue, answer this in the comments. What would you do in this situation? Ethan's hand hesitated on the ornate brass doorknob. The moment he pushed the door open, a chill crawled up his spine. Something was wrong. He could hear the faint, irregular sound of breathing, a stifled struggle, quiet, almost apologetic. His heart raced. Every step he took through the empty hallways echoed, each echo sharpening his instincts. When he reached the grand living room, his world tilted, threatening to crumble. His mother, Catherine Carter, was bound to a chair, ropes biting into her frail arms and torso. Her head hung low, exhaustion and fear etched deeply into her delicate features. Across from her sat Vanessa, his wife in a shimmering emerald gown, legs crossed, a glass of champagne balanced effortlessly in her hand. Her calm, poised expression was horrifyingly serene, like a predator watching its prey. Time froze. Ethan's mind raced, grappling to understand the scene before him. Catherine, the woman who had rescued him from the streets 27 years ago, who had raised him as her own when no one else would, was trembling under his wife's cruel orchestration. Vanessa's eyes held no guilt, no love, only a cold hunger that Ethan had never dared to imagine. Quick challenge, describe this moment in one emoji. Let's see what you pick. Fire. He had convinced himself he knew his wife. He had believed in the soft smiles, the elegant dinners, the nights that seemed full of shared dreams. But now, in this room, the truth struck him like a jagged lightning bolt. Vanessa's love had been a facade. Her beauty had been a mask, and behind it was something far darker than he could have ever predicted. Ethan's legs moved almost on their own. He knelt beside his mother, his hands trembling as they worked to loosen the ropes. Catherine leaned into him the moment the restraint fell away, her body weak but her spirit flickering with recognition and trust. "It's okay, Ethan, it's okay," she whispered, her voice fragile yet full of the love that had shaped him into the man he had become. The weight of betrayal pressed down on him, heavier than any corporate failure, any business loss, any public scrutiny. Vanessa remained seated, a cruel smile tugging at the corner of her lips, her champagne untouched. "I've always been in control," she said softly, almost as if she were speaking to herself. "You never saw me, Ethan. You only saw what you wanted to see." Ethan's chest burned with a mixture of rage, heartbreak, and disbelief. He had built an empire from nothing, but the greatest treasure in his life had always been Catherine, the only person who had ever loved him without conditions. And now, he realized that treasure had been in danger, not from strangers, but from someone he had trusted most. The next hours passed in a blur of action and decisions that felt surreal. Ethan's mind, usually methodical and calculating, worked through pure instinct. He called his lawyers, revoked Vanessa's access to all accounts, and ensured she could no longer influence or endanger Catherine. Every move was decisive, fueled by love and fear for the woman who had given him everything. As Catherine slowly recovered in her room, wrapped in a soft blanket and surrounded by the quiet hum of reassurance, Ethan sat beside her, holding her hand. She looked at him with eyes that had always seen his soul, eyes that now mirrored pain but also hope. "You've always been my son, Ethan," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of decades of sacrifices, sleepless nights, and unwavering love. "And now I see the man you've become. the man I always knew you could be." Tears rolled down Ethan's cheeks, not just for the betrayal, but for the realization of how blind he had been. He had been so consumed by success, by power, by the illusions of wealth, that he had almost lost sight of what truly mattered. His mother's hand in his was more precious than any contract, any title, any empire he had built. Days turned into nights, and nights into quiet mornings filled with the sound of Catherine's soft humming, the rustle of pages as she read, and the warm comfort of shared stories. Ethan rebuilt his home not with marble and gold, but with compassion, care, and a renewed understanding of love. He renovated a wing just for her, hired gentle caregivers, and dedicated himself to being present in a way he had never been before. Vanessa's departure was inevitable. Her absence, a mixture of relief and lingering sorrow, reminded Ethan of the fragility of trust and the cost of ignoring the signs that had been there all along. Yet, in the midst of heartbreak, he discovered clarity. Love was not something bought, controlled, or demanded. It was protected, nurtured, and cherished. One evening, as the golden rays of the setting sun filtered through the curtains, Ethan sat beside Catherine, holding her hand. The quiet between them was filled with understanding, forgiveness, and a deep, unspoken bond. "You've given me everything, Mom," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I won't ever let the world hurt you again. Not now, not ever." Catherine smiled, her eyes glistening with tears, reflecting the love that had been her guiding light. "Life has a way of testing us, Ethan," she said softly. "But you've learned the most important lesson, that true wealth is measured not by the billions you count, but by the hearts you protect, the love you nurture, and the kindness you give." In the days that followed, Ethan dedicated himself entirely to her care, to rebuilding the bond they had, and to creating a home filled with warmth, trust, and safety. He realized that happiness was found not in luxury, but in presence, not in control, but in compassion, not in perfection, but in love. Through every quiet moment, holding her hand as she slept, listening to her stories from decades past, sharing meals together, and simply being near her, Ethan felt the world shift. The betrayal, though painful, had revealed what truly mattered. It had reminded him that life was fragile, and the people who loved you without conditions were your real treasures. I'm watching your comments right now. Tell me, should I continue the story or stop here? And so, the mansion that had once felt cold, silent, and filled with tension became a home once more. Laughter, gentle conversation, and the quiet hum of shared memories replaced the fear and betrayal that had threatened to destroy them. The bond between Ethan and Catherine deepened beyond measure, rooted in gratitude, love, and a renewed understanding of the fragile, precious nature of life itself. Ethan often found himself sitting beside her, watching her breathe softly in her sleep, thinking about how close he had come to losing her, not to the world, but to the darkness that had hidden behind a familiar face. And every time he looked at her, he whispered a promise to the universe and to himself, that no shadow would ever touch her again, that he would protect her as fiercely as he loved her. In the end, he learned a truth that no amount of wealth, power, or fame could teach. The greatest treasures in life are the hearts that would never betray you, even when the world turns cruel. And as Catherine rested peacefully, Ethan felt a calm he had never known, a peace born not from dominance or control, but from love, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond of family. He had found the greatest treasure of his life, not in gold, not in power, not in the world's approval, but in the heart of the woman who had given him everything, without ever asking for anything in return. Backhand index pointing right. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread so we can continue spreading stories of love, courage, and humanity. Before the story ends, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Ethan's place?